Artistry Unlocked here. Welcome all you artists and creatives. Today we are taking this gigantic extra large watercolor Canson paper pad and creating this smaller, more workable, personable watercolor sketchbook. Let's get into it. This is an 18 by 24 inch watercolor pad, 140 pound cold press paper. First step, disassemble this pad, and we're just going to yank out the paper from its cover and back cardboard piece. Save that cover and cardboard piece for later. And the first thing we do is to cut this paper in half. Now, I tried to take this to a professional shop to have it cut by their industrial machine, but it didn't fit because I wanted it cut down the lengthwise portion here, the 18-inch part, into half, which will be 9 inches. But it didn't fit in the machine, so I have to do it this way in my studio on top of my desk with a cutting mat underneath. And you'll see that this cutting mat is not big enough, and I've got a little bit hanging off the end. And so don't worry, I will put like another pad underneath it before the blade will hit it. Utility knife here, taking it right down the middle and scoring it. And I'm not overly muscling it, but I am pushing down, but I'm letting the blade do most of the work. Okay, so there I put the little pad towards the end. So now I'm completely covered and I won't scratch my desktop there. Multiple scores with this thing. I don't know how many it took. But again, letting the blade do the cutting and not so much my arms, just to keep things safe. Yeah, midway through it. Now I flip the blade over and use a fresh blade. Should have done that at the beginning. Yeah, I thought that too, but this worked. A few more cuts, and we have two pieces of a 9 by 24 inch sheets of paper. And here I'm gingerly going over the last sheets so I don't cut too much into my cutting pad. And voila, we have two separate pads. And I use one of these sheets for this book that I'm creating now, and saving the other half for later, for another book, for another time. That's what the cut ends look like. A little ripple here and there, little bits of paper to pick off. But it still worked out. Even though it's a little rough, you can see here, it'll do. Maybe add a little character since it's a watercolor pad. Using it as a watercolor pad, I realized that it's not a watercolor block. So there's going to be some warping, some rough twisting in the future use of this with watercolor paints and water. So a rough edge wouldn't be too bad. Would actually add character. Separating out each sheet, keeping it in the order that it came out of. Oh yeah, so satisfying to take this little glue strip off, isn't it? Yeah, that's satisfying. Feels really good. And there's still a little bits here and there left on the edge that I've got to pick off. And we're still glued together. Like so. You've got to pick them off as best as I could. I didn't get it completely clean, but that's all right. Again, adds character. these little bits were not as satisfying to remove as taking off that big piece of bacon that you saw earlier. That was pretty cool. All right, after picking off all those adhesive strips and so forth, we now take each sheet and fold them in half. Align the corners. Wait a minute, let's try multiple sheets, right? Why do one by one if you can do 3 at a time? But wait a minute, the corners just don't line up as well, and the sheets, yeah, they kind of turn, so I go back to one single sheet at a time to get it just right. And right about now, a bone folder would be nice to have, but I don't have one, so I got to use this little plastic squeegee to fold it. What's a bone folder, you might ask? It's this piece here, made out of bone, and it's very, very stiff. But in my case, I realized that this little red squeegee here was just a little bit weak, and I opted for a ruler instead. But the problem is with using this ruler, because I haven't used it for a long time, and the last time whoever used it left some paint on the surface, and a little bit of the paint got transferred onto the paper surface as well. So aligning the corners right there, just right. Let's switch to this ruler here, just like I was saying. Oh, you can't really see it actually, but it left little marks on that particular sheet right there. And I'm like, darn it, there's markers right there. Bad. And I'm like, who got paint on this ruler? Probably me. Most likely, since it's my ruler, my desk, my stuff. And who got eraser and dust on these sheets of paper and on top of my cutting pad? All right, let's continue with folding the paper, and let's go a little bit faster here. So I put it in, I think this is 5 times the speed, or 5 times its normal speed. And now I'm taking a sheet and just showing how satisfying it is to fold one of these things with this ruler. Oh yes, very nice. Very crisp and clean folded edge. A nice stack of them here. The next step, making signatures. Whoop, there's a little piece hanging off of there. Grab that though. Well, okay, maybe not. Assembling signatures. Now a signature are groups of paper. Typically in a book, you'll see them from 4 to 6 pages. In my case, I decided I was going to do 1 sheet per signature, but I thought 3 would work out okay in this case, so I'm doing just that. I'm creating groups of 3 per signature in this watercolor sketchbook, for a total of 9. There, we finally got that little Klingon there on the end. Thank you. Next step, punch holes into the signatures. Now this is where I went wrong. I kind of over-engineered this thing. For some reason I thought you had to have 1 station per inch for a total of 9. And I didn't quite think this through. I was just thinking how many or how long or what's the distance from the edge. I chose a 1/2 inch. So a 1/2 inch from the edge and 1 inch apart for a total of 9 stations. Stations are these line of stitching line meaning the stitching per alignment per hole. I don't know how you really describe this. I'll have to show it to you. Right there. So these are stations. So I taking one sheet here right now, and I'm thinking, you know, I will just use this as a jig or a pattern to create the holes for the rest of them. And I'm using a thumbtack at first to get things started, just because it was just easier to set the holes. I will come back later and use an awl to widen out the holes, such as this awl here. That's right, just create a larger hole, because we'll be using waxed thread, upholstery thread, or leather thread. And that, by the way, will be in another video, the part 2 of this series. So this is the pattern and the jig that I'm lining up the rest of this particular signature, and I will be using it for the rest of the signature in this book, so that I won't punch a hole through my desktop. Well, not really punch a hole, but, you know, scratching it or something. And even my cutting pad, I use these 2 cardboard cardboard boxes, shallow boxes, to create some space underneath, and it worked out just right. And now I'm creating this assembly line of holes. A nice manufacturing process, if I do say so myself. So after all the holes are punched, we go into the front and back covers. Now this is that same back piece of that cardboard coming off of that Canson pad. I cut 4 pieces of 9 by 12. And I take 2 of these cardboard pieces, clean them up, and rather than keeping or taking fabric and cover them like you normally see in a book, I just didn't find a pattern that I liked. So I'm just going to create my own pattern that I prefer. And so to do this, I cover this with this acrylic, Golden brand acrylic, which I'm not affiliated with or sponsored by the way. I cover it with this ultramarine blue acrylic. One nice healthy coat will do. Interesting, in this video you could see this matte area off to the left is where this acrylic had already dried a little bit. You can still see the wet areas. And now for the other side. My high-tech paint palette, which is that paper plate. Getting the edge. I'm painting this because there's going to be a 1/2 inch reveal. I will put a liner over the inside of this thing, which is going to be a 1/2 inch smaller all the way around. Well, on 3 edges, I should say. Covering all the edges with this paint is important. Go ahead and just cover at least a 1/2 inch. I'm going beyond a 1/2 inch, but you'll see later on when I put the liner in, I will have 3 edges to be revealed. Now that part is done, and I'm off to the next cover piece. There's this little strip of that white paper that just didn't come off, but I think I took some sandpaper or scraped as much as possible off of that piece of cardboard. Same steps. Put this golden ultramarine blue in the middle and work out towards the edge. And I think I learned from the first piece that I should probably use paint in the corners and in the middle, and it's just more effective this way because it dried out on the first cover. Nice even coat all the way around. Same thing on the other side, a 1/2 inch reveal for 3 edges. And now we go on to this next step here, which is painting my artistic pattern using this gold color, Angelus brand leather paint. Now, I like using this leather paint because it's a little bit less viscous or less thick, more watery, which makes it nice to create patterns, striping in this case. And I use my stripes because of the artwork that I've been doing recently. You can find them on my website, which is depicting the sky and the heavenly bodies. There it is, the moon and the stars and the little patterns of light with those concentric circles and lines. Trying to figure out where to put my moon, which is going to be off here to the right. Whoop, I started off too big and now I'm going a little bit smaller. So it ends up being this oblong shaped moon. Nice. Let's put Saturn right here, opposite the moon on another corner. Another part of the universe, I know. Nice. Move it up in front of the camera. Rings of Saturn. Longer on one side, but I can correct it. That's okay. Make the disk of Saturn a little bit bigger. Is Saturn a gas giant like Jupiter? Is it? I know the rings are like those rocks, right? Maybe Saturn is a rocky planet. Who knows? But there it is. There's Saturn. Now for stars. Taking my paintbrush, which is a flat or a square brush called a flat. Making these little plus signs with it, rotating the brush after dabbing it the first time, rotating it and then dabbing it again, make the cross piece, just like so. And these are your closer stars, closer to the camera, closer to the astronaut or whoever took this picture. Distant stars are going to be these little dots, far in the distance. Happy stars. Maybe they're galaxies, who knows? But this is my world. And this is what I'm going with. Okay, this is another planet. Maybe that is Mars. Maybe it's Aldebaran, who knows? Aldebaran is a star. Or Deneb, or Mizar and Alcor, the stars of the Big Dipper. No, I'm not painting a constellation in this. This is just random patterns. Keeping in mind that I will be going around these things with concentric lines, concentric circles. So the first one to get these concentric circle light patterns is what these are depicting. This is an expressive way to create this pattern of light. And I'm encompassing or embodying that star into this light coming off of the moon. What do they call that? Conjunction? Maybe not. I don't remember. But if you know what it is, please say it in the comments. Continuing on with these concentric lines, I will need to balance out these lines around each of the stars as well. So let's go around each of these stars. And there's the concentric circle idea around that big, what was that, the black hole? All right, so that's the idea anyway, but in an artistic way here, that I am painting on this cover for a watercolor sketchbook, which I thought lends to work out quite nicely here. So each of these stars will get these concentric lines and eventually fill up the entire space on this surface. And not only will the stars and planets and moon get these lines, but I will also create an atmosphere in the same manner. So this brush I'm using is a short liner brush. The bristles on a liner brush are a little bit longer, so it carries a lot more paint, and it's really nice to make stripes with. I don't always wear gloves when I paint. I try to as much as I can because I know paint ingredients might have some toxic ingredients that's not very good for the body. And I just don't want to get it on me sometimes. So just trying to play it safe. So it's nice how I can just draw around these, creating circles like this with a steady finger and arms and hand. It just comes with practice. Been doing this for a while. Like I said, this is going to be filled with these concentric lines, circles, creating a pattern, if you will, of an artistic expression. But to add more interest, I will create these swirls. I'll put one right here. And this might be an atmosphere, perhaps the air currents moving, maybe possibly the wind, the currents moving around here in space. Well, in this case, if it's air, it's got to be on the surface of the Earth. But we're looking up through the atmosphere into the sky, and this is some of the air currents, or the swirls, if you will. And I know you're thinking you don't really see the air, these swirls, but it's just, again, an expressive way to convey that there are actually swirls and patterns in the sky that maybe we see, maybe we don't see. But here we are in an expressive manner, in this painting anyways. The reality is the viewer's mind makes it as whatever they want it to be, is how that works. ASMR, autonomous sensory meridian reflex, or something like that, where this could be very relaxing. And if you'd like, I will post the timestamps of the end of this cover into the next one, and also the end of the covers overall, and jump over to the installment of the lining, the paper lining that goes on the other side of these things. In the meantime, I'll put on some music. I realize that some people like to see these things not in time-lapse or faster speed. I don't know, let me know in the comments what you think. But I'm going to let this run at this normal pace without speeding it up, just so you can see how I create this painting. 3510 is the end of this cover. And I believe it's 4910 will be the end of the cover's total and into the back lining. So let's put that up here, 4910. That's 4910. There we go. Thank you. All right. Enjoy and relax. And yeah, just enjoy the music. Okay, so here we are now with the lining or the inside of the covers. And I've got this sheet of paper which I cut to size, which is a 1/2 inch in on 3 edges. Here I'm marking off the 1/2 inch marks so I know where to place this after I put the adhesive on the back. So this sheet of paper is from an art store. It's from the, I think it's scrapbooking section. And I just cut it down to a 1/2 inch. Top and bottom would cause it to be 8 inches, so 9 inches total. 1/2 inch on each side would take it down to 8 inch. And the long side is, it's only one side like that. There, the one edge is not going to be cut down. This edge right there is going to go all the way to the edge. The other side of that is a 1/2 inch in. So a total of this distance is 11.5, since the cover is 12 inches. So this sheet of paper is 9 by 11.5. Okay, I've got this now sponge paint brush with this adhesive glue, Elmer's Craft Bond, quick dry, fast drying, and it's acid free, so it is what do you call it, archival. It's safe. And we're just going to gob this glue right in the middle of this thing, and we're going to work from center out to the edge. A little more glue, please. A little more. Ah, nice, nice. That's about it. Thank you. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Let's take this brush, which is kind of a disposable brush, but it coats this adhesive nice and even. Work my way out to the edge using that cover from the watercolor pad, that big blue sheet underneath, to catch any of the overspray. Well, not really spray, but you know what I mean, so to speak. And there's one sheet there. Now I'm going over this because I was just afraid that it was drying on me. So I gotta quickly put it onto the marks that I have aligned. Sorry that it's off center here, off the camera. But this is kind of an urgent time where it was important to get this on right away before the glue dried on me. And I worked off of one side and laying it back down, working my way from the center out. And I was going to place it on there, but there's wet sections of glue on that blue sheet, so I didn't really set it down in front of me there. I'm like, where do I put this? Just slap it down anyways. Whoops, a little wrinkle. There we go. Take it out. Press down. Nice and even all the way around. Wait, is there glue on the other side? Let's check. Not much. We're good. Okay, there's one. Do the same thing for the next one. Too much glue on that side. Let's flip this over so we have a nice fresh surface. So we can goop this side up as well. Here's the other cover. It's going to go in this orientation. Let's check and see if this is right. Yes, it is. This is the first cover that we created. And this is how that sheet is going to go. There's no 1/2 inch reveal on that stitching side or the binding side of the book, which is that bottom area there. Let's mark off the 1/2 inch in so I know where to land this sheet of paper, giving me a little guide. after I put on the glue, and that's where it goes. And we're about ready to glue this sheet. Same manner, nice big glob towards the center, working my way out. This is my makeshift book press, which is 2 large pieces of wood panels, very flat. I think this came off of a table center. And I got my warped pieces, warping from the Elmer's glue, which is very wet. Center it off and put the other piece on top, like so. Let's put a nice big weight on there, about 30 or 40 pounds, which is my guitar amp. Boom, just like that, we're off to the races. Let it set overnight, and in the morning, we get this. Let's see what we got. Oh yeah, nice and flat sheets. Go back to my desk. Let's see how everything fits together. We're missing some holes, so our next step is to punch holes into these cover pieces. Check fit, and it looks like it's going to work. Look at that. Boom. All right, so to set the holes, I've got to measure off a 1/2 inch in from the edge. Now it's always better to, if you're working with a ruler, to go, there we go, to go inboard from 2 to 1 versus from 1 to 0 or 1 to the end. And now we're going off a 1/2 inch from the edge and 1 inch apart for each hole to mirror that that signature or the pages. Measuring off 1 inch in from the end there, using my clear T-square. Measuring off the holes so they're just right. And we're ready to go. Get a cardboard box so I won't go through my cutting mat. And we're drilling. We're just drilling, baby. Okay. Creating each hole. And doing this, it causes the other side of the cover to splay out. These little bits of cardboard will splay out. So I got to flip it over and fix it. Well, before that, I got to ream out these holes and make them a bit bigger or wider. There we go. On the other side, I got to push back those pieces that are splayed out, like I was just explaining. Just shove them back in a little bit. And to widen it out on this side as well. 9 holes total. Matching the pages just like that. Okay, works good. Creating the holes for the other cover, using the first one as a pattern or a jig. And we're drilling away. And just like that, we're done. Same thing, we're reaming it out on this side and reaming out the other side as well, which kind of cleans it up a little bit. Giving it a nice twist like this seems to work pretty good. And that's it for this video. For the stitching part, look for part 2. I'll leave up in the corner. And I'll catch you in the next one. Remember, you're the artist.